if a vocation is really, if it's really what you're called to, it's gonna be hard to get to that end point. Yep. It's not just gonna be a breeze.
Fantastic. Okay. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I am certainly very excited for today because two of my very, very good friends are joining us today for the podcast. Joining me is Michael and Sophie Marinchak, recently married, only not even 4 full months, right?
It's been, not even 3 yet, right?
I don't know.
Like two and a half. Like 2.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, if you might remember Sophie from last August, she joined me when she was Sophie Steiner.
Yeah.
When we talked about the Clifton Strength Finders and our bottom strengths and weaknesses and such things. But today, I wanted to have them both on as our kind of newlyweds. Yeah. We haven't had a married couple on yet, so that's super exciting.
That's awesome.
And I couldn't think of a better pair to ask. Yeah. Actually, scratch that. Yeah, I did have my brother and
I was
sister-in-law.
going to say, your brother's really going to be
It's kind of hard to count them because they're on all the time. Sorry, Johanna. But anyways, so I first met Michael when we were freshmen in college. We came to St. Vincent together, graduated together. Don't really know much of Michael, actually, through our first year or two of college. And we started getting a little bit closer as we started getting involved in campus ministry, particularly men's ministry things. Mm-hmm. And then graduated, kind of went a little bit of our separate ways. And then a few years later is when I met Sophie, who came to St. Vincent then. And I was working campus ministry, and I think we might have talked about how we got to get to know each other.
Yeah.
But then worlds collided, and you two met. So tell me that story.
Do you want to?
Well, how we met?
Yeah. He DM'd me on Instagram.
Yeah. Slid right in.
Hey, it works, folks.
Yeah. I think it was more than just us, but I was traveling back with a friend from a wedding, actually, and he was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and I was just browsing through Instagram, and I saw that I had a friend request from this Sophie Steiner person, and I was like, she's kind of cute, and it looks like she's Catholic, maybe. So I don't know. And she looks like she's in the area, so whatever. Looks like we have a lot of friends in common, except. And then that was it. Because the thing is, it's like a lot of stuff on your profile and nothing to do with St. Vincent. You're just like, I'm from Idaho and I'm in the area. So that's cool, you know. And you definitely seemed more mature than a lot of mutual friends and whatnot. But yeah, and then it's just that summer, I think you just posted something about being in Seattle at a bookshop, a used bookstore, and that was my in. I was like, whoa! I honestly wasn't even. I was actually curious about because I was on a huge used bookstore kick. Mm-hmm. I mean, always am, but. Especially at that.
Nerd will probably be a theme that comes up for Michael. He's great. He's awesome. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So I love used old books, especially epic fantasy novels. That's I have so many. I don't have time to read them all.
So many.
The collection is 300 plus now. But anyways. Yeah, just you were at a bookstore, and I was like, yo, this looks really cool. What kind of books did you find?
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. And after that, just got started down the rabbit hole of I like these genres. Do you like Lord of the Rings? I love Lord of the Rings. Have you watched the movies? We love the movies.
Yeah.
I watch with my family. Your family. That means you have siblings. How many siblings? You're one of 7. I'm one of 7. Yep. It's,
wow.
Yeah, and then
it
just
all
started from there. And before you know it, you were I hate messaging. Messaging's horrible. Absolutely garbage.
Yeah.
Can we send videos instead? So then you started sending videos of you eating spicy soup and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's so random.
And you were working as a graveyard shift. you were working the graveyard shift, and then there's a 3-hour time difference.
Right.
And I got so excited to get little video messages from you.
Oh.
And
yeah.
I think we moved to Snapchat for a hot second there.
I think so.
Snapchat.
Yeah. But then I that was over summer vacation, and then I came back to St. Vincent the following semester, and we met the day I moved in, because you were friends with the resident hall director of my building, and so I was in the lobby. Wait, did we arrange to meet? No.
Wait, had you actually not met in person?
We hadn't actually met yet.
No.
I was tweaking too.
Wow,
I was sitting there
like...
Yeah, but it was. I had to get my room key from Shane, the resident hall director, and Michael was with him. And so I'm like sitting in the lobby of Wimmer, and you guys came down together, and I was like, oh my gosh.
There he is. Yeah. What a hunk.
And then we met, and everything just kind of went from there.
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy because, because we've been messaging and talking, and like I think we had a couple like calls over the phone, and then, up to that point, and then kind of followed your journey because you're from Idaho, to Pennsylvania.
That's right, the road trip.
So following your journey by car across the country, I think, did you bring Claire that time?
I did.
Yeah, you and Claire, your little sister Claire.
Yes.
And
Did you meet Claire?
No, I didn't, because she it was pretty quick turnaround. You just you came, unloaded your stuff, and you dropped her off at the airport so you could fly home.
That's right.
But I came down to the lobby with my friend Shane, gave you your room key, and I think I offered to like help you unload or whatever. And you're like, nah, I got it.
I don't need a man.
Classic. But then like we had some time, and
that's right.
I kind of ditched Shane, and then we went
to Leander.
There you go.
Yeah,
we went to Leander, and we talked for like 2 hours.
Yeah,
it was a while.
Yeah,
but like the thing is, like it felt so natural too. Like, yes, I was very nervous to like meet you in person, and kind of just, but like dove right in. It's like, oh, here's my story. Oh, here's my story, and we just went for it, and it just felt so natural.
Right. Yeah. And then we officially started dating like 5 or 6 weeks later. Yeah. It was a year or so we dated, and then a year engagement, and then now we're married.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's a lot of summing up, but
no, that was good.
That's pretty much.
Thank you. That's I do remember like at some point, Sophie, you said like, oh well, I think we were like catching up or something, or you were coming to small group and you were like a little late, and I was like, oh, why are you late? I'm like, oh, I was just talking to someone. I'm like, okay, but it didn't look like you were just talking to someone. So then later I asked you, like, you might know him. I'm like, really? And you told me. I was like, what?
I know.
Let's go.
Well, and that's what was crazy was that I transferred in, so I only had like 2 years of school, but the people my age were like friends with Michael when Michael was a student.
Yeah. So
it was like all these friends I had, like the monks primarily, were like, oh yeah, I know Mike. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, no, we came in together and all kinds of stuff. And so it was wild that like, my worlds just like started colliding in that way. It was crazy. And still to this day, I'll meet random alumni and I'll say, oh, I'm with Michael Marinchak, and they'll be like, what? Like it's crazy.
How? What?
Yeah.
Well, if we could go maybe to that you summed up 2 years pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe we could like go into a little bit more of the weeds of what you guys were experiencing or thinking. So I wanted to especially talk about today like marriage, and we've talked a lot about vocations, more like religious vocations, monastic vocations, but on the podcast we haven't really much talked about marriage, which is just as fundamentally important in the church. And Our Lady of Fatima said that the final battle in the world will come down between marriage and the family. So to be married this day and age is not an easy decision. And with so many definitions these days of what marriage is, you're fighting that culturally. I'm sure you're fighting your own demons personally. So maybe like just post-engagement, how are you guys like walking through some of those decisions? Because to say yes to an engagement is one yes. You actually still have to go say yes at the altar, and that's a completely different thing. So, discernment is just as fitting and necessary for those getting married as it is for one entering religious life. So, what was that process for you? What were some of the things that maybe you were definitely, oh, yep, this feels good, this seems right, I'm at peace here. Oh, no, I'm like, all of a sudden all these red flags are coming up, either for them or for me, whatever. Mike, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So, I think...
you asked the question too, so you had to think about this a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So my vocation path is actually quite... like going through college, like a lot, like it was a lot of like bouncing back and forth. It was just like, especially college here at St. Vincent, with the monastery being like, combined with
in the backyard.
Yeah, it's right in the backyard. It's we have a lot of great like religious men, monks running around helping with everything, and drawing great inspiration from that. And I could really see like joining the order and becoming a monk and like living out my days quite satisfied. But at the same time, I also had a draw towards like family life and I guess meeting somebody and just getting married and raising kids. So it was kind of like it just like ping-ponging back and forth between these two worlds, and after like a lot of like discernment and like going to different retreats and come and sees with the monks and just talking, not just monks but with like diocesan priests as well, I realized that like this is definitely something I could be a good fit, but I was, at the same time I was also dating different women and trying to explore like that life as well. So it's actually quite interesting because I look at you, Brother Francisco, and it's like, wow, our lives were kind of like in parallel for a while there, going through our college years, and then we split on like on that road.
Yeah,
like our vocations took like just like the mirror almost. I like what you like. Wow, that's what my life could be. It's like and like. And I'm sure likewise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's quite interesting in that regard. But here I am, like firmly down the path of marriage now, and honestly, leading up to that decision, like leaving college, I was in a relationship. That relationship ended, thankfully. There were a lot of,
says thankfully too.
Yeah, there were a lot of not so great things like there for like myself. I needed to grow through. That ended, and I went through a significant period of growth, and I'm glad that relationship happened because it showed me like, okay, yes, I think this is for me, but there's a lot of like refining that I need to do. In my own spiritual life. So started on the path of like spiritual direction, trying to like reforge myself, got a new job, and that's whenever like rounding out through the spring and summer, whenever Sophie and I connected. And once we really got started talking, it was pretty clear. It was like, wow, like I feel really called to marriage. Everything in my spiritual life is pointing in that direction, and here's this wonderful woman that it's just like everything just clicks in place, where like I feel sure there's some things I'm still struggling with, a lot of like anxieties and to get through, but like Sophie is just there for me in a way that nobody ever has been before. Like she understands me. We're on the same page faith-wise. That's huge. That's ground level. We have a lot of the same moral ambitions and goals in life. And honestly, like asking you to marry me and then getting married was like the easiest decision I've ever made. And I'm like, decision making is very hard for me for a lot of.
So I've heard.
Yeah. But like, marrying Sophie is the easiest thing I've ever. There was like honestly no question. It was like, yep, this is it. Boom. Let's just do it. You know. But
that's a couple things that you said. I just love. First, that final statement there. Normally, it's difficult for you to make decisions, but this one was really easy. I think is a testament of that you found your vocation, right? And that the Lord was very much working in your life. So he's like, can I make this as easy for you as I can here? But also that, like, your discernment process was just done very well, because the things that you did before you started pursuing marriage were take care of the externals or the other things, which I have found a lot of people kind of they do discernment out of order. They're trying to figure out the question, but their life is still a wreck. Or there's all these other things that they need to address, but they're only worrying about this question. But rather, if you take care of your mental health, you take care of your physical health, you get a spiritual director, you do these natural things, all of a sudden your body and your mind and soul are disposed to actually following your vocation. So, yeah, thank you. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, your vocation is not meant to fix you. It's you kind of going out of yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
Good. Sophie, how about you? It was exactly the same, right?
Exactly same. I was going to become a monk. No.
Well, you did have your hair cut really short.
I did.
You could have passed,
I probably
honestly.
could have slid right in there. I think for me, discernment was a little different. I mean, obviously with very different temperaments and backgrounds and stuff, but I had never really wanted to get married, and I didn't really want the religious life either. For most of my young adult years, and especially coming into college and stuff, I was like, I'm going to be a consecrated single. I'm not getting married. I don't want, I have commitment issues. I think that's what that all comes down to. But there was still something in me that desired companionship and desired to be desired by somebody else, right? Which, I think is pretty normal for most human beings, but I didn't know how to acknowledge that very well, I don't think. And so I didn't date a lot in college, but when I met Michael, there was something in me that was definitely very fearful and really hesitant to like pursue that, and to really like, you hit a certain age, it's like you had graduated and you were working, and it's like, we're not at the age to date for fun, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
You're dating in your 20s, it's like, and you're Catholic and you're taking it seriously, like, you're either going to break up or you're going to get married.
Yeah.
And, like, that's a scary thing. It definitely scared me a lot. But, yeah, I think that it forced me in a really good way to recognize my inner faults, right? Like, the things within me that tend to shoot up when God's testing me, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing with discernment is, in order to properly discern, you need to know yourself, right? And that comes back to kind of what you were saying about going to spiritual direction or going to therapy and trying to get healed before you start pursuing your vocation seriously. Is, when you're on the right path, like, Satan's gonna be tempting you.
Yeah.
Like, he's gonna be like, ooh, what about this? Like, what about that? You sure you want to get married? You sure you want to join the religious life?
Yeah.
Like, and it's gonna look different depending on who you are, right? Like, I tend to be a bit more avoidant. So for me, it was just the stupidest things would pop up, and I'd be like, oh, he likes this, so that means it would never work out, right? Like, oh, he does that, or I like this and he doesn't like that, so there's absolutely no way we would work out, right? And it took me recognizing through, spiritual direction and stuff that, Sophie, just because those things are coming up doesn't mean if a vocation is really, if it's really what you're called to, it's going to be hard to get to that end point. Yep. It's not just going to be a breeze, provided that you're, praying, provided you're working, you're keeping God in the center, and you're not just relying on yourself to figure it out. And that was just a huge learning thing for me, was like, just because things are popping up doesn't mean that they mean anything, right? Yeah. It just means that you have some, like, healing you need to work on. And, a lot of healing comes through the working up to marriage, and I'm sure working up to solemn vows or ordination. So that's kind of a rambling answer.
That's really good. Especially when you said like knowing yourself. Yeah. In just the spiritual life in general, that has to be your first stage. It's coming to know yourself, and that's an ongoing thing. We can never fully know ourselves because since we are created in the image and likeness of God, there's like a level of not full, but there's a level of like infinite knowability about like the depths of the human person. But in a way too, and just because we've shared a lot in like the Strength Finder small groups that we had, or just getting to know you too, that like when you got to know yourself and accept yourself, then I think, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it like opened your eyes to know that like other people can and want to accept you too. Oh yeah. And as far as like discernment, maybe even for both of you, that's when marriage is like, oh, okay, like this is what marriage is. Like this person isn't just like putting up with me or like settling that for me. Like they actually desire me. And I see why, because I also do see what is good about myself. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And it's also recognizing that everyone goes through that. I think that's the huge thing, is you kind of look at yourself and you're like, isn't it supposed to be like butterflies and rainbows all the time? Aren't I supposed to just like feel so sure? Like I hate when people say like, you just know. Like, all of a sudden you just know. And it's like, that is a load of garbage. I literally just said that. No, I think that there are people who have that grace, and they have that level of like surrender, and God works with them in that way. But when, you have people who don't have that experience, they're like, what's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. Like, how am I ever going to know what I'm called to? Yeah. And it's like, dude, like, everybody's going through this. Some people just are good at hiding it, or some people don't like to talk about it. And that's one of the things I love about doing ministries, when I have college students come up and they're like, wow, like, dating's hard. Yes. And me and my me and my significant other are like fighting, or we're coming, to butting heads about certain things that like they do this thing that really triggers my wounds or my past hurts from my family or past relationships. It's like, right, that's natural. Like, and if it's meant to be, you allow them to help you heal. Like, that's the beauty of it. And I love debunking that dating's fun, because dating's hard.
It's fun too. Yeah. It is challenging.
If it was never fun, people probably wouldn't do it. Yeah. But, so just something you said too, kind of, because Michael said like, once you asked her, like, you knew. And you're like, well, is that garbage or not? I think the difference is like when your decisions are rooted in prayer. Right. Because a lot of times we're hearing those platitudes from people who also do kind of whatever the heck they want. And like, oh, I just knew. Like, really? You also just knew blah, blah, blah yesterday because you were high. Like, there's no correlation right now. But by grace, my grace is sufficient enough for you, right? So when it is hard in these circumstances, we can at times still be certain, not despite the hardships, but even with them, because it makes sense because His grace is working here. Absolutely. So, yeah. Okay, so you at least, Sophie, mentioned, so I'll ping pong this on both of you, but like your own family experiences maybe affected or polluted, whatever word you want to use, your vision of marriage, if you wanted to get married at all. How was that for both of you? Whether, as I know, it's different. There's Sophie, your parents are divorced. Michael, your parents aren't. How did that play into knowing or deciding to get married and have that commitment with each other? Did, Michael, in your case, your parents' example help or still make it difficult at times? Because when people see, oh, your parents are married, you probably have a great example. I'm like, well, my parents are not perfect. And in fact, actually, it might have deterred me more because they should be together, but there's things about them that aren't in harmony, right? We'll start with Sophie this time. So like Francisco said, my parents are divorced. It's interesting because I think
I wanted for a very long time to believe that, like, that didn't affect how I view marriage, right? Because it's very implicit. It's not like you're like, my parents got divorced, so I hate marriage. Like,
right, yeah.
But Father Tom, my spiritual director, always told me that the two things that he sees consistently, no matter what, affect children if it happens within their family is if their parents get divorced or if they're adopted. He was like, without exception, it is going to affect the child.
Wow.
And when he told me that, I was like, again, that like, okay, I gotta like accept this, but it's also not just me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it definitely, it gave me not necessarily a pessimistic look on marriage, but I think it gave me the sense of like, marriage isn't the best option, right? Like, it would be better to be alone than to be married, right? Unless you're one of those lucky people with a beautiful, perfect marriage, you know?
Yeah.
It was kind of, I didn't grow up with a lot of examples of good, healthy, holy marriages, right? It was a lot of wives complaining about their husbands all the time, right? Even if it wasn't my parents, it was my aunts and uncles, or
hearing
like,
someone do it.
Oh yeah, constantly, and it's kind of like, man,
why do this?
Right? Why would I sign up for that? You know. But right, again, there was still always that something in me that desired to have that good, holy relationship and to be loved in a way that was holy and valued in a way that was holy, and to not feel, burdensome or tied to something that was not the best option. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense. And thinking about like who were the first humans that God created were a husband and a wife, right? He didn't create a priest first.
Right.
He created a husband and a wife. And so what did Satan have to attack then was the unity that they shared, in hopes that by that disunity it would affect all generations afterwards. And when we have examples of that disunity, it does kind of trickle effect. So, like, in ways, then to have commitment to each other and to still push forward in marriage, even with bad, is to, like, face Satan and be like, no, you're wrong. Like, this is proof that this is how God designed us to be. And absolutely families will be what saves the world. Yeah, because also, like, we can repopulate. Like, that's something my dad always. When I say we, I mean definitely not me in this context. But something my dad likes to say a lot is like, at the end of whatever, there'll be three groups left: Catholics, Mormons, and Muslims, because they're the only ones who like care about child
who are having
rearing.
Children.
And he also does say, he's like, you know what? Some of these like woke crazy people. They'll be around for so long, but guess what? They contracept themselves to death.
Yeah.
So eventually, like, your guys' witness will be in the majority again. And, like, that is something hopeful. So
praise God. That'll be a great day.
So yeah, do the Lord's good work.
Right, have babies.
Many, multiple. Yeah. If you have 6 siblings each, right? Right. You have to have at least that many.
At least.
A couple twins in there.
All right.
You know.
So, somebody told me, I think it was my friend Justin's wife, she also comes from a family of 7, and she was like, my mom always said, have 7, get to heaven. And I was like, that's so good. Oh my gosh.
I've never heard that.
11 rhymes with heaven too.
Stop. Oh my gosh. Anyways,
Michael, how about you?
Oh geez. Yeah, so growing up, I had and still have the great example that is my parents. If I could sum up my parents in one word, it would be consistent. My parents are like, they it wasn't perfect. You know, we had our challenges, like in our immediate family, our external family, still do, but consistent in the fact that consistent in our beliefs and our faith, consistent in the love and sacrifice for me and each of my siblings, consistent in how we view the church and faith and our traditions, and consistent in how we treat other people, you know. And I just had like such a great role models and witnesses to the faith in my parents that they were able to kind of just by living and demonstrating that to us, me and my siblings, that I guess I just kind of absorbed it throughout my life, right? Definitely some trials, right? Like my parents, it's not easy raising, 7 kids.
Yeah.
So a lot of sacrifice, in careers, and a lot of sacrifice in like monetarily, and in time. A lot of time has been sacrificed just to raise us and bring us up and feed us and clothe us and house us. And I think just in that, seeing how my parents treat each other through all that, and how they're consistently loving and like display that love, is very encouraging. It's like, this is supernatural, even super, natural, and it's just normal. It's like, wow, this is how it should be.
Yeah.
And I with that, it made it very easy, to, I guess, see myself in that role, as a father, a husband, and to keep that door open for myself as I, grew up. And they were like always encouraging of religious life, or like do whatever you feel called to, go to like seek whatever path within faith and reason,
right. Yeah.
But like and with that, obviously, that they love and support us, but also would like to keep me like close, very close, very close-knit family. Yeah.
Smotheringly close? Or
sometimes yes. Sometimes yes. And which, is...
As parents should.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just, it's born out of love. And sometimes it was hard to recognize that growing up.
Sure, yeah.
But like now, looking back, it's like, wow, okay, I'm glad I was protected from a lot of, really negative things.
Yeah.
I would not be who I am today without them, their teachings, their guidance, them putting their foot down when I want to do something stupid, and
like build a Viking ship. That's like a total side thing. He did actually do that,
and he did it in their yard too. So
it's in our shed now. So
unfortunately, oh my goodness.
But yeah,
that's awesome. I'm like super psyched right now off a couple of the things you said. I don't think there's a conversation I can have with Sophie where this Clifton Strength Finders does not enter in somehow. But your top strength, right, is consistency. And the fact that you said that you like learn consistency, not just like in action and like in belief, but in how you treat other people, which I think for you, Sophie, is like one of the most valuable things that you look for in people. And the things that aggravate you the most are people who don't do that. And in some ways it makes sense based on your family history, you just seeing so much inconsistency that you're desiring to find it. And then who did the Lord put into your life? But someone whose own family trained him in it, so that then your family together can be one that like grows and develops that same consistency in
continuity. Such a good insight. When he said consistency too.
I know, I saw your eyes were like, oh my
I
God.
Like that. Yeah. No, but
you see what I mean though?
Yeah.
My family is...
They're so consistent. Right, consistency is pretty high for him too. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's one of the things that I love most about the Marinchak family is that they are... I find with consistency, it's a very stabilizing strength, right? And it's like people need stability in order to feel safe and like they can thrive and grow and like and be okay, the Marinchaks provide that in such a beautiful way where it's like I know anytime I'm around them, I'm going to be bombarded with love and affection, and in just the most honest and holistic way, right? In the most, like, genuine, not I'm trying to win you over kind of way, right? It's a very, like, I just care about you, and I'm always going to kind of a thing, right? And my mom provided that, you know, by and large, and I'm very fortunate to have had that strong woman, but it definitely...
Hey, Mom.
Yeah! Strong, independent woman. But she's not independent. She loves God. Her and God are like this. Being able to see that when I didn't grow up in a household that was very consistent, just because, right, divorce kind of tears stability apart, right?
And if I could just, like, give a 2-minute testimony to, like, me experiencing it from both of you, was at your wedding reception. And I like, okay, I've been to a lot of weddings, especially since I've become a monk. Theirs is, like, top.
Nice.
In so many ways. Just, I mean, getting to sing in the choir for your mass was just such a blessing. Having it in the basilica was just so perfect. But the reception was, like, both, like, chill, but also, like, super, like, thrilling at the same time, if that, like, makes sense. Maybe it was, like, where you guys had it in that, like, kind of, like, barn thing, but when people asked me later, like, oh, how was the wedding? The thing I kept on saying was something I'd never experienced in any other wedding, even my own brother and sister-in-laws, was the fact that you two came up individually to, it seemed like everyone. And I definitely received this. Not to just get a picture or to be like, oh, it's so good to see you, but, like, to really feel like you guys wanted to talk to me and, like, engage. And I remember at one point, like, you guys were talking to me and then someone pulled Michael away, and Sophie, you and I talked for, like, almost 10 minutes. I was thinking, like, you're the bride, you're the most important person, like, here, why are you talking to me? Like, there's all your family from Idaho, all these other people who, like, love and want to talk to you, and you're just talking to me one-on-one. And I saw you, Michael, doing that. You and I did that. It just, yeah, I don't know. It meant so much to me personally. So I want to thank you. But also, like, what a great way to start your first day of marriage, is just to show other people that, yes, you're loving about and towards each other, but that it is definitely not just about the two of you. And so then if we could, like, move on to, like, the last thing I wanted to talk about, which was just how you want to live, I guess, your guys' marriage in contrast to what the culture says or what it defines, or maybe, like, either excitements or fears about that kind of dynamic in the future, that, you know, things could potentially only get harder when it comes to laws for or against marriage, particularly against. We don't live in the most, you know, pro-marriage state. So, yeah, first, just want to thank you, but also, like, yeah, how are you guys feeling about that? Or what would you even say to like, exhort people who are on the fence about marriage because of those anxieties or those uncertainties about how the world sees it?
That's a good question. Do you want
to go? I think the biggest pro for getting married, for seeking a good, solid marriage, is I was thinking about this past couple of days in preparation for this session. Is stability, right? You know, you take a vow of stability here at the monastery, and that grounds you. That doesn't keep you at the monastery, but you know it's always something you can return to. It's like your roots, basically. It's your foundation. And I think that in itself is the biggest, for, like, one of the biggest pros for marriage nowadays. Is there's a lot of instability in our culture, in our society, in our government, that it's very scary, you know, like, to wake up and not know, you know, what's going on in the world. But especially in a relationship, like, if sure you can be in a long time committed relationship and not get married, and like, have your own promises to each other, but at the end of the day, you don't have those vows. You don't have the blessings, the sacrament. You don't have the mindset. Like, you can tell yourself that all you want, you know, like, your partner's for life, but like deep down, you really don't have it solidified.
Yeah.
You could wake up one day changed and be like, you know what, this is not it, and be out.
Mm-hmm.
But in the back of your mind, you know that your partner can also do the same.
Yeah.
Whereas with marriage, Catholic marriage, a traditional Catholic marriage, you're going into it without like completely the opposite mindset, saying that this is it.
Right.
You know, there is no going back. This is we're locked in. You know, and that in itself, that peace of mind, that stability, where it's like no matter what, you know, I'm going to be there for you. You're going to be there for me. We're going to have trials. We're going to have challenges, but we are going to do everything we possibly can to get through it together. You know, that there is no backing out. You know, this is it. Is quite comforting. You know, I think that stability allows us to do so much more.
Yeah.
Be at ease in many other aspects of our life. Whenever, you know, we're working together and we have that mindset.
Yeah.
So I don't want to date again ever. Our dating culture nowadays is absolute garbage.
Trash.
Yeah. So yeah. Even if you die or something, that's
you're gonna become a monk.
I'm just gonna be a monk.
Let's go. Not that I want you to die in any
don't-
situation. Don't interpret that anyway.
So, like, yeah, our
That's-
dating culture nowadays is pretty garbage.
Scary.
Yep.
It's pretty scary. Can be done, but
Yep.
The means of
That's okay.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's so good. Biasly, stability. Yes, sir. I was kind of, as you were talking, also thinking that, like, what did Christ found to be the stabilizing entity on earth is the church. And what does the catechism call the family? The domestic church.
Yeah.
So, like, it makes so much sense that you're graced with an extra level of stability. And it, by nature is what, and then grace builds on nature, right? So by making it a sacrament, it just, makes it all the better. So thank you, Michael. Sophie, now to you.
That was beautiful. I was also thinking about this in preparation, but I think for me, the beautiful thing about marriage, especially in this day and age, is that it is one of the best examples that we have of Christ's love for us, right? That self-sacrificial, this is all for you kind of love. And, right, we're made in God's image and likeness, and the fact that we have that capacity is so beautiful and so fulfilling. And I think that's just it, is we live in a culture that's so obsessed with the self and so obsessed with, like, hey, you don't need to get married because you don't need to tie yourself down, and you shouldn't have obligations to make anybody else happy but yourself, is so backwards because it is so unfulfilling. It goes against our very nature. And marriage, by what you vow is, the rest of my life is going to be dedicated to making sure that you get to heaven. And that's just like the most beautiful thing. It gets me so excited. And the idea too, right, of from that self-giving love comes kids. And then, you know, obviously your primary responsibility is your spouse, but it still is, you're setting your kids up to be able to go out and then give that to other people, right? Yeah. And it's so countercultural, and I think that's why it gets me so excited, because it's like, the world tells you otherwise and tells you shouldn't worry about other people, worry about yourself. But those are the people who are miserable, you know. The people who go into marriage with that mindset are miserable. Yeah. And it's like, I know so many people in Catholic marriages like that, right? Where it's like, how is my spouse, you know, behaving in a way that needs to change to make me happier? How can they help me better with the kids? It's like, whoa. Like, hang on. You got this backwards, dude. This is a give and take. This is I love you, so I'm going to do all that I can to make sure that you're okay and you're thriving and you're doing well. And if you really love me, you'll be doing the same for me. Yeah. It's not this, like, you're not living up to my expectations. Right. You know? Yeah, that's yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, something I've heard people say before, like, oh, marriage is like 50-50, give and take. And I heard like this priest say, that is so wrong. It's 100%. If you're only giving 50%, don't bother to get married.
Oh, yeah.
Then the thing you said about, like, your job is to get Michael to heaven and his you. Love is by nature missional. It sends us on mission, because the Trinity itself is a missional relationship. The Father is like pours himself out completely. That's what a mission should be, is us pouring ourselves out towards the other person. The Father does it perfectly to the Son, who in turn receives and pours it perfectly back to the Father. And what is that fruit is the Holy Spirit, who is what sends us on mission. The Spirit is love, and he moves us. So that the fruit of your love is actually, you now have a mission, and his name is Michael. And Michael has a mission, and her name is Sophie. And then all those little ones who will follow, have, whatever names. And that's why also the family reflects the Trinity.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Marriage is a beautiful thing. And, yeah, even, again, like Michael talking about, the enormity of what you're signing up for, and, like, the stability that comes from that. Like, as scary as it can sound, describing this, like, it's the rest of your life, right? Again, that was something that was scary for me. There was no point, like, leading up to that wedding. People are constantly asking you, how are you feeling? You tweaking out? Like,
are you sure? Are you
sure?
There's still time to back out.
Right. I got a getaway car. Like, the whole thing, and, obviously all in good humor, but within that, it's like, I just lost my train of thought, but, no, it's okay. It was funny, but I honestly can't remember where I was going with that.
But you were like, no, sir.
I know, no, right, but it's scary, but right, there was no point where I was like, I think I gotta get out. I gotta get out, because it was like I could feel the comfort, I could feel the security, the stability, and I didn't want to be flailing on my own anymore and trying to get better and figure things out on my own. And it is. It's beautiful. It's a commitment that is so well worth it. Yeah.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
10 out of 10. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Fantastic.
I'm so glad that our wedding was fun too.
Oh yeah, it was.
It was low key.
I sweat so much.
Yeah.
At my wedding now.
Yeah, same.
They have pictures. Sophie was showing me some of them. But it was me. There was 3 monks. Me, Brother Jose, and Brother Bosco. And not gonna lie, when we bring it on the dance floor, we bring it.
It's insane.
And it's pretty baller.
He'll splice in the photo.
Yes, exactly. So
my family members, we don't have many monks out in Idaho, and every single one of them at some point in the night was like, those monks are insane. And I was like, you have no idea.
They can verify.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for coming. I appreciate your time and your sharing and your witness to marriage. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did. And if you have any more questions about marriage discernment, please leave a comment below. I'll pass it off to Sophie and Michael, and they can get back to you guys. If you have other questions about discernment in general, or you just want to share your own gratitude for your marriage or the witness of your parents, please do so. We'd love to hear stories of God's goodness working in the world. This has been All Good in the Brotherhood, joined with Sophie and Michael. If this was helpful or good for you, please share with your family and friends. Give us a like, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you never miss another podcast or Benedictine life episode. Signing off. Adios.
Bye. You're such a YouTuber.